All right, Walter Wofford back. STR Cash Flow Roadmap, another episode. We've been talking about arbitrage, and that is renting from a landlord or homeowner a vacant house, then you furnish it, and then you put it on the platform for Airbnb, and your spread is what you're after. So it's just a cash flow play. Now that's wonderful for scaling. You can get things going quickly, but it doesn't give you any upside potential ownership. So we're going to add one more element, and that is we're going to add an option to purchase at the same time that we negotiate the lease. Now you'll find this very interesting because it nails down a price at some point in the future, and it's different than a right of first refusal. So pay attention. We're getting off in the weeds. By the way, my AI team helped me with the content and delivery. And if you like these videos, just hit the thumbs up and subscribe button. And also, if you'd like a copy of this ebook, just pull your camera up to it and hit the link with the QR code and fill it out, and it'll immediately be sent to you. All right, Walter Wofford, options.
Okay, let's jump right in. You've brought us some really interesting material today.
Yeah, it's about something a lot of people know, short-term rental arbitrage, or STR arbitrage.
Right, that basic model.
But it adds this layer, an option to purchase, which kind of changes the game according to these sources.
So just to recap the baseline from the material, STR arbitrage is, leasing a place.
Yep, lease it.
Furnish it out nicely, list it on Airbnb, VRBO, places like that.
Exactly, and the goal is simple. Make more money from your guests than what you're paying in rent.
And the sources highlight this as, well, a way to get your foot in the door in real estate, right? Build cash flow without needing that huge down payment to actually buy.
Precisely. Lower barrier to entry, potentially good cash flow.
But the material raises immediately. You don't own the place. You don't own the asset.
That's the fundamental weakness, yeah.
All that effort, the business you build, it could just poof, disappear if the lease runs out.
Or the landlord decides, hey, I'm selling.
Yeah, exactly. So your income stream isn't secure because you lack that control over the property itself.
And that's exactly where the sources bring in this idea.
Yeah.
The option to purchase. They frame it as a real solution.
Okay, so what is an option to purchase according to this material?
Well, it's described as a formal legal agreement. It gives you the exclusive right.
The right, okay.
Yeah, the right, but importantly, not the obligation, not forced to buy that specific property. And crucially, at a price you agree on today.
Locked in.
Locked in, yep.
Yeah.
And that right is only valid for a set period of time, which you also negotiate.
Interesting. So the sources are saying this simple agreement, it basically transforms the whole thing.
That's the argument. It shifts you from just being a temporary business operator in someone else's space
to potentially building long-term wealth, real estate ownership.
Exactly. And they make a point to contrast it with, say, a right of first refusal or ROFR.
How so?
With a ROFR, you only get a chance to buy if the landlord decides to sell and gets another offer. You're reacting.
Right, you have to match someone else's offer on their timeline.
Yeah, but the option, according to this material, puts you in control. You decide if and when to buy within your option period.
Got it. So for this deep dive, our mission is clear. Let's unpack why the sources think this is so powerful and, how it actually works on the ground. Let's pull out those key insights.
Sounds good.
All right, let's get into the real power of this option. Based on what you've brought, what's the first major advantage highlighted?
The biggest one they stress right off the bat is locking in that purchase price today.
Okay, and why is that such a big deal?
Well, think about leverage against, say, market appreciation. The sources give this example.
Yeah.
Let's say you negotiate an option today to buy a property for $250,000. And that option is good for 3 years.
Okay, 3 years.
Now imagine the market goes up. By year 3, maybe that property is worth $325,000.
Right.
If you exercise your option, you get to buy it for the agreed $250,000, not the current market value.
Wow, so you'd instantly have, what's that, $75,000 in equity.
Exactly. Built-in equity, just like that. The moment you close, because you locked the price years earlier.
And how do you get that right? Is it expensive?
That's the other interesting part. You secure this right with what's called an option fee.
Yeah.
And the sources say this fee is usually pretty small, relatively speaking, maybe $1,000 to $5,000 typically. Sometimes even just $1 technically.
$1 to $5,000 to lock in a future price on a potentially appreciating asset.
Right. And often that fee can be structured so it gets credited towards the purchase price if you actually go through with the purchase.
So it's not necessarily lost money even.
Potentially not, yeah. It's positioned as a small investment for potentially huge upside and control.
That idea of manufacturing equity by essentially betting on appreciation while locking your cost. That's pretty compelling stuff in the source. What's the next benefit they talk about?
The second big one is controlling the timeline.
Ah, okay. Not just the price, but when you buy.
Exactly. This gives you incredible flexibility according to the material.
How so?
Well, you get to choose when, during that option period, say, the 3 years in our example, you actually pull the trigger and buy.
So you can wait.
Yeah, you can wait until maybe your STR business is throwing off really consistent profits.
Okay.
Or use the time to line up private financing, maybe find investment partners.
Or just save up more for a down payment yourself.
Right. Or structure it strategically.
Yeah.
The sources mention things like using a Roth IRA or maybe land trust. The point is you align the purchase with your financial situation, your readiness. You're not forced into the landlord's timing.
Which, like you said, is totally different from a right of first refusal where you just have to react.
Exactly. You're proactive here, not reactive.
So you've got price control, timeline control. This must make you look better to, like, lenders or potential partners too, right? Even before you own it.
That's the third point the sources emphasize. It gives you a competitive edge.
Okay, how?
Well, just holding these contingent ownership rights, this option, makes you seem, well, more substantial than just a regular tenant running a business there.
Right, you have a documented path to ownership.
Exactly. And that can make it easier to, say, bring in equity investors who see a clearer path to owning the underlying asset.
Makes sense.
Or, as mentioned, maybe using funds from a self-directed IRA, an ST IRA, or a Roth IRA for potential tax benefits.
Interesting.
It could even help you negotiate seller financing directly with the landlord. They know you've already invested time, money, built a business in their property.
So they might be more willing to work with you on the purchase financing itself?
Could be. Or it helps structure joint ventures. If you bring the deal, the proven operation, and an option, someone else might bring the capital for the purchase. That secured right makes a difference.
So you're leveraging that future potential ownership right now.
That's the idea.
The source also seems to stress that this isn't some rigid off-the-shelf agreement. What does it say about negotiating the actual term?
Oh yeah, that's huge. It's presented as highly customizable. Unlike maybe a standard state purchase agreement, an option agreement lets you negotiate almost everything.
Like what are the key things the sources say you can tailor?
Well, first, the option fee we talked about.
Right, the $1K to $5K-ish.
Yeah, you negotiate the exact amount and definitely negotiate whether it gets credited back at closing. That's a key point.
Okay.
Then, the option term. How long do you have the right to buy? The material suggests aiming for like 1 to 5 years. Longer generally gives you more breathing room.
Let the STR mature, arrange funds.
Exactly. Then, the purchase price itself.
Which we said you lock in.
Right. But how you lock it in is negotiable. It could be a fixed dollar amount, like our $250K example, or it could be tied to a formula, maybe something like $250,000,
right,
or the current appraised value, whichever is less.
Oh, interesting. That protects you if the market somehow drops.
It could, yeah. Another thing is maintenance and repairs. Who's responsible for what during the option period?
Standard lease stuff usually falls on the landlord, but here
it's negotiable. The source even suggests that maybe agreeing to take on more maintenance responsibility could be a bargaining chip.
To get a better price or a longer term, maybe?
Perhaps, yeah. And finally, a really critical one. Assignability, meaning can you transfer your option rights to someone or something else? Like, can you assign it to an LLC you form later, or a trust, or your IRA?
So you're not locked into buying it personally.
Exactly. Having that ability to assign is vital for flexibility down the road, for structuring the deal properly, or even for your exit strategy if you decide not to buy but maybe sell the option itself.
Wow, okay, so lots of moving parts to negotiate.
Definitely. It shows how you can really craft the option to fit your specific goals in this situation.
So it's a flexible framework. Now, how do the sources say you actually put this into practice effectively? What are the absolute must-haves in the agreement? And they mentioned a case study.
Yeah, they stress that a solid, clear option agreement is absolutely crucial. It needs to be legally sound.
Makes sense. What are the key elements it has to include, according to the material?
Okay, so first, it absolutely must clearly state the option fee, what it is, when it's paid, and confirm if it's credited at closing. That secures your right.
Got it. Fee details.
Second, the exact agreed-upon purchase price, or the formula to determine it, needs to be unambiguous. The goal here is predictability and capturing that upside.
Price locked down.
Third, the option period or term. Start date, end date. How long your right lasts. Again, the source leans towards 2 to 5 years for enough runway.
Clear timeline.
Fourth, that right to assign we just talked about needs to be explicitly stated in the agreement if you want that flexibility.
Don't assume it's assignable.
Definitely not. Fifth, landlord obligations. This is critical. The agreement must legally prevent the owner from selling the property to anyone else while your option is active.
So your right is truly exclusive.
Truly exclusive. And finally, the execution process. How do you actually exercise the option if you decide to buy?
Like, how do you tell them officially?
Yeah. The 4 suggests things like using certified mail for formal notice. And the agreement should specify a clear timeline for closing the sale after you exercise, maybe, 60 or 90 days.
Okay, so very specific mechanics.
Having all that nailed down in the legal document is presented as non-negotiable for this strategy to work and protect you.
Right. And they illustrate this with a case study.
They do. It's called Brianna Builds Wealth with an Option in the material.
Okay, Brianna. Let's hear her story based on the source.
All right, so Brianna starts out leasing a duplex. Rent is $1,800 a month.
Standard lease.
She gets in there, sets up her STR Arbitrage business, and does well. The source says she's netting about $2,500 a month in profit from the Airbnb operation.
Nice cash flow. Better than just breaking even.
Definitely. But here's the key move Brianna made, according to this study.
The option.
Yep. When she signed the lease, she also negotiated and signed an option to purchase agreement with the landlord.
Smart timing. What were her terms?
The purchase price was fixed at $275,000. The option term was 3 years, and the option fee was $3,000.
Okay.
And that $3,000 fee was agreed to be credited towards the purchase price if she bought.
Got it. So she's operating her profitable Airbnb knowing she has this right locked in. What happens next?
Fast forward 2 years into her 3-year option period. The local real estate market has appreciated. The duplex now appraises for $340,000.
Ah, okay. So worth quite a bit more.
But Brianna holds the option. She's not subject to that new $340K market value.
She gets it for the $275K.
Exactly. She exercises her option. The study mentions she partnered with a private investor to get the funds needed for the $275K purchase.
Okay. And the result?
The result is she now owns the property that her profitable STR business is running in. And instantly, she has $65,000 in equity.
The difference between the $340K value and her $275K purchase price.
Precisely. Captured equity.
Wow.
And the case study adds one more detail. About 6 months after buying, she was able to refinance the property based on its higher appraised value, pull out some of that equity in cash,
Then use that cash.
to fund her next STR arbitrage deal, presumably looking to add another option to purchase there too, repeating the cycle.
Huh. That case study really does connect the dots, doesn't it? It takes those theoretical benefits we talked about, the price lock, the timeline control, leveraging the asset, and shows how they played out for Brianna. Tangible wealth creation.
Yeah, it makes it concrete.
It really shifts the narrative from just running a rental business on someone else's property to making that property itself a core part of your wealth strategy, fueling future deals.
And that really captures the core message the source seems to be driving home in its conclusion.
Which is?
That this option to purchase is positioned as like the essential exit strategy for serious STR arbitrage operators. It's the bridge from just cash flow
The ownership.
to ownership and building real long-term equity in real estate, turning that temporary income stream into an owned asset.
So the power, according to the material, is renting profitably now,
Right, proving the model works.
while setting yourself up to buy strategically later, capturing appreciation, building equity.
And doing it without having to fight in bidding wars or deal with the usual uncertainty of the open market.
You create your own purchase opportunity.
You do. It lets you build a longer-term vision for your real estate portfolio using tools that are accessible even when you're starting out with the arbitrage model.
So what's the final piece of advice from the source?
It's pretty direct. They basically say, don't just chase the front-end cash flow from STR arbitrage. That's important, sure.
But think bigger.
Yeah, if building actual wealth is the goal, you need an exit strategy. And an exit strategy that leads to owning the asset you've already proven is profitable.
Makes sense.
They wrap it up with a quote, something like, lease smart, operate strong, and own when it counts.
Lease smart, operate strong, own when it counts. That definitely reframes STR arbitrage. It's not just a hustle, it's potentially an on-ramp.
A strategic on-ramp to property ownership and, well, building wealth more deliberately.
Yeah.
It absolutely shifts the perspective. I mean, think about the implications here for a moment.
Yeah.
You're essentially using the income from your STR business, your operational skill, to secure the right to buy a property, possibly under market value down the line, locking in equity, gaining control, all without needing the full purchase price right at the beginning.
Right.
So the provocative thought maybe is, how could incorporating that kind of strategic foresight, that path to ownership, change the way you, the listener, might approach building your own asset base, even starting from a rental model?